Some places are meant to feel safe. A home, a hospital room, a bed where you're supposed to rest and recover. But sometimes, when the lights are dim and the night grows quiet, those places become something else entirely. Tonight's story is based on a personal experience shared online. It's not meant to shock, only to be remembered. Listen closely. I want to share a disturbing experience from years ago when I was admitted to the hospital. I was warded for an ACL operation in the orthopedic ward. The bed on my right was occupied by an elderly Chinese auntie. She had been bedridden for a long time, just waiting. Her body was already stiff, bent unnaturally into a C shape, facing to the right. When I first checked into the ward, a group of people came to visit her. They stood around her bed, praying, some of them softly singing. I remember clearly hearing the leader of the group say to the auntie's child, "Not long now." I ignored it. I didn't think much of it. The next day, I was taken into the operating theater. Full anesthesia, ACL surgery. About 5 hours later, I was wheeled back into the ward. My leg was completely wrapped and immobilized. I couldn't move. As I was pushed past the auntie's bed, there was a curtain separating us. I could still clearly see her body, still bent into that C shape, eyes closed, extremely frail. I later found out she was 98 years old. That night, something happened. At around 9 p.m., a nurse came to check my blood pressure and give medication. Even though my bed was in the middle, she attended to me first, probably because I had just come out of surgery. While checking my blood pressure, the nurse pulled back the curtain separating me from the auntie's bed. And that was when everything changed. The auntie's body, which had been facing away earlier, was now turned toward me. Her eyes were wide open, staring. The nurse screamed, "Allah, Auntie!" The ward erupted into chaos. Nurses and doctors rushed over. CPR was started immediately, but it was already too late. I heard the doctor pronounce the time of death, 9:50 p.m. I was still in pain from surgery, but the shock, the image of her eyes, and the way her body had changed position, it traumatized me even more. I asked the nurse if I could change beds. She told me there were no empty beds. Then she joked, "If you want to move, you'll have to wait until Auntie goes downstairs first." I didn't laugh. That night, I couldn't sleep. The lights were never fully turned off. The curtain between me and the auntie's bed stayed open because her body was still there. I could clearly hear voices, her children, talking, crying. The ward was noisy that night. I told myself it was fine. At least there were people there with her body. At least I wasn't alone beside the deceased. Then, around 4 a.m., a nurse came again to check my blood pressure. I complained to her, "Do we really have to wait until morning to send the body to the mortuary? It's noisy. I can't sleep. So many people are visiting Auntie." The nurse looked at me, confused. "Who, miss?" She pulled back the curtain, and the bed beside me was empty. Only the bed frame remained. The mattress was gone. I was stunned. "What do you mean? I heard people talking, crying. They were here all night." The nurse replied, "We took the body to the mortuary at 10 p.m., miss. There was no one here after that." So, who had been talking beside my bed all night? And what terrified me the most, why did the auntie's body turn toward me with her eyes wide open?
This happened when I was informed too. My late father was warded in one of the large government hospitals in the middle of Kuala Lumpur. That night, I stayed over to accompany him in the ward. The atmosphere felt different, It was cold, probably because it was raining heavily outside. Lightning flashed continuously, and strong winds hit the building. Around 11 p.m., my father suddenly said he felt like eating something. Not the food already prepared on the bedside table. He wanted something sweet. I told him, "It's already late. The cafe should be closed, and it'll be hard to get back in if I go out." But he replied calmly, "No need to go far. There's a vending machine downstairs, right? Just get some bread, biscuits, or anything sweet." So I agreed, even though that night I felt strangely uneasy, an irrational fear, which was unusual for me. Before leaving, I pulled the curtain around my father's bed. That was when I noticed the elderly man in the bed directly in front of him. My eyes were immediately drawn to his eyes. I had never seen him like that before. Usually, he lay still with half-closed eyes, weak and barely conscious. But that night, he was sitting upright. His face was pale, his eyes wide open. He was looking directly at me. And then, he smiled. I smiled back, even though my heart skipped, confused and unsettled. I left the ward and walked toward the lifts. With every step away from the ward, the sounds of machines slowly faded, until everything became unnaturally silent. When I reached the junction leading to the lift area, I hoped to see a security guard. There was no one, only a small note on the desk that read, "Out for break." I stepped forward, entered the lift lobby, and pressed the button. All 6 lifts opened at the same time. I didn't panic. It wasn't unusual at night when fewer people were around. Sometimes 2 opened, sometimes 3. So I assumed this time it was just all 6. I entered the nearest lift. Just as the doors were about to close, a voice called out, "Hey, hold the door. Let's go together." It was a male hospital attendant pushing an empty bed. He started pushing the bed into the lift, but before he could step fully inside, the lift doors slammed shut. I quickly pressed the open button again and again. Nothing happened. The lift started moving downward. I looked at the screen above the door. I hadn't even pressed a floor yet. Panicking, I quickly pressed G. The screen showed 4, 3, 2, 1, G. But the lift didn't stop. It continued going down. B1, then B2. The lift stopped. Confused and frightened, I pressed G repeatedly. Then the doors began to open. I slammed the close button as hard as I could. As the doors slowly parted, I felt the temperature drop sharply. Not normal cold, the kind of cold that feels like a freezer. Outside the lift, it was dark. Only faint green emergency lights glowed in the distance. I stumbled backwards and collapsed into the corner of the lift, watching the opening through half-fearful eyes. That was when I heard it. A woman's voice, soft, slow, reciting something gently, rhythmically, like a prayer. The sound echoed inside my head. Terrified and freezing, I hugged my legs and began reciting whatever prayers I remembered, quietly at first, barely moving my lips. As the voice grew louder, I raised my voice, but the recitation only grew stronger. Then, suddenly, a deep male voice joined in, beginning the recitation, before the woman's voice continued again. I froze. I forced myself to look outside again. Through the dim green light, I noticed a sign on the wall, an arrow pointing left. It read, "Mortuary." My eyes widened. Before I could process it, bang! The empty bed slammed hard against the wall. At the same time, the recitation stopped. It was replaced by something else. A woman's laughter. Sharp, high-pitched, repeating. So close, it felt like it was just outside the lift doors. I shut my eyes tightly and recited everything I knew, loudly now. But the laughter continued, ringing in my ears. I felt like something was standing right in front of me. I stayed curled up in the corner, eyes shut, unmoving. After what felt like 15 minutes, bang, the bed hit the wall again, and suddenly, silence. The darkness remained, but this time I felt the lift moving upward, slowly. When I felt sure, I opened my eyes, but only looked at the floor. Gradually, I lifted my gaze toward the doors. Relief flooded me. The doors were closed. I looked up at the display. 2, 3, 4. The doors opened. I stood up and ran out immediately. And there, standing outside, was the same hospital attendant from earlier. He grabbed my arm and asked, "What happened? Lift stuck? I waited for almost 5 minutes. It wouldn't open." 5 minutes? I looked at him and replied, 5 minutes? It felt like almost 50. I was stuck downstairs at the mortuary.
My aunt used to work as a nurse. She's retired now. She once served in a large hospital in Malaysia, a very well-known one. Which hospital it was will remain a secret. This story has been told many times among hospital staff. The details may change, but the core of the story is always the same. Why was one hospital bed eventually removed from the ward? This is how it began. One night, a man named Hassan was admitted to the ward. The bed next to his was already occupied by an elderly man. Hassan didn't think much of it. When he needed to use the bathroom, he greeted the old man and exchanged a few words with him. The old man was friendly and spoke calmly. After returning to his bed, Hassan looked at the wall clock, 11:59 p.m. He lay down and closed his eyes. Exactly at 12 o'clock midnight, Hassan suddenly smelled a strong, metallic scent of blood. He opened his eyes and looked around. The ward was quiet. The lights were dim. The old man was still lying in the bed beside him. Thinking the smell might be coming from another patient, Hassan quietly asked the old man if he smelled it too. No response. Hassan assumed the old man had fallen asleep. He closed his eyes again and eventually drifted off. At around 3 a.m., Hassan jolted awake. His bed felt as if something had bumped into it. His heart started racing. He looked around, nothing. When he turned toward the bed beside him, the old man was gone. Hassan tried to calm himself. Maybe the man had gone to the bathroom. But before he could relax, suddenly, the old man was standing right beside his bed, smiling. Hassan was shocked, but tried to stay composed. He asked if the man accidentally hit his bed. The old man slowly shook his head. Then he sat at the foot of Hassan's bed and softly said, "I want to go home." Hassan replied without thinking, "When you're feeling better, you can go home." Only then did Hassan realize something unsettling. He didn't know what illness the old man was suffering from. The next morning at 8 a.m., Hassan woke up when a nurse came to check his blood pressure. He felt confused. Wasn't he just talking to the old man? He looked to the side. The bed was empty. Hassan asked the nurse about the elderly man next to him. The nurse looked at him strangely. "That bed has been empty for 2 days." Hassan felt a chill run through his body. He asked who the last patient in that bed was. The nurse replied, "There was an elderly man. He passed away from a heart condition. His body hasn't been claimed yet." Hassan froze. Later, while heading to the bathroom, Hassan suddenly saw the old man again. This time, his face looked sad. "Are you okay?" Hassan asked. The man nodded slowly. "I want to go home." Panicking, Hassan rushed to the nurse's station. "Nurse, the man from the bed next to me is here." The nurse looked toward the bed. Nothing was there. Hassan pointed with trembling hands. He's right there. The nurse saw nothing. Hassan's legs gave way. Everything went dark. When Hassan opened his eyes again, it was already evening. The sound of the Maghrib prayer echoed faintly. He turned his head toward the bed beside him. The old man was there again, this time covered in blood. His eyes were wide open, staring directly at Hassan. With a louder, harsher voice, he said, "I want to go home." Hassan screamed and ran. He collapsed unconscious in front of the nurse's counter. After that incident, the doctors and nurses agreed to remove the bed next to Hassan from the ward entirely. But the story didn't end there. To this day, some hospital staff claim they still see the old man's figure. Others say that if you pass by that area late at night, you can suddenly smell the unmistakable scent of blood.
These stories are shared for storytelling and discussion purposes only. They are based on personal experiences submitted online. Interpretations are left to the listener. If you've ever experienced something unexplainable at home, in a hospital, or anywhere you once felt safe, you're welcome to share your story in the comments. If you enjoy quiet, respectful Malaysian horror stories like this, consider subscribing to the channel. New stories are uploaded every Thursday night. Thank you for listening, and good night.